Hey, everybody at Author Nation. Welcome back. It's our quarterly update, or I think it's a quarterly. Who knows?
Yeah,
I'm still just recovering from the Author Nation show, but we're here with Elizabeth Ann West from Future Fiction Academy. Welcome back.
thank you. And thank you for having me. Yeah, we've been doing this for every quarter now, I think for a year.
Yeah, yeah, at least. I think we
Hmm.
started this right after the last 20 books. We made this kind of
Yes. And there
commitment.
was actually, yeah, your very first the very first time I was on your podcast was actually 2022, believe it or not, about AI. You were the very first podcast that had me come talk about AI.
Yeah, that was. I remember you showing it was pseudo right
Yep.
at Nink
Hmm.
pulling people together, and it was very enlightening to me what you were working on, and I just felt that like we had to be talking about this stuff that
Yeah.
um anytime there's and to think how much it's impacted since then, kind of crazy. You almost forget half the stuff that's happened. And
We realized, like, part of my presentation at Author Nation about what's been happening in AI. We showed, the model that people think is very basic, GPT 3.516K, and then Strawberry. And I explained how those models are only a year apart in age. So in 1 year, we've gone from being able to, like, being so excited that it can read 10,000 words to now it can, like, read entire novels. And I mean, that's just insane.
yeah, yeah. Well, and so the things that I mean we can touch on this particular episode, the stuff that I'm keeping an eye on
Yeah.
is the head of AWS has just announced that they're going to be developing their own chips, and they're working closely with Anthropic. They invested another 4 billion into Anthropic. They're looking at spending um like $100 billion over the next 10 years in building out hardware and data centers that can support this stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't, this was in the journal yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to go look at their numbers. Um, I know they're doing, that's a lot of cash that they're investing into um, the future of AI. Now it makes sense to me given if AWS is going to be relevant in 3 years, they have to be at the forefront of this. The other thing I'm interested in hearing your take on is Perplexity and its focus on what it's going to be doing around shopping.
Okay.
I don't know how much you've seen about that, but that's one that's real interesting to me. Um, they're they just announced that they're starting to work with Target and a couple other companies. They're taking on merchants, so they're starting to figure out. I think it's a smart move by an AI company to focus in on what product search looks like with AI.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that Amazon's been in the a what okay, so we always have to preface what we call AI is not real AI in the science
Right.
fiction movies. It's not thinking on its own. It's literally just a very sophisticated prediction machine.
Hmm.
So best way to think about it is these are algorithms, but now we have new ways of putting that information in a way that the computer can seem sentient in its responses. Amazon's been leveraging this technology for a very long time, over a decade in their stores, where it's predicting what someone's going to purchase in the store. That's one of their big advantages that they had in the marketplace. So I think Perplexity is very smart to be bringing that 2.0 or even 3.0, depending on how you look at it, to other retailers who have, let's face it, Amazon has topped online shopping for a very long time. The other ones have not really been able to make as much significant inroads as they would like. So I think that we could see a more even evil, Freudian slip, a more even playing field for online shopping, to where maybe in 3 years from now, we're not saying, oh, I'm just going to go get that on Amazon, or let me go check Amazon for the pricing or whatever. And instead, you're saying, let me go check Perplexity because Perplexity is indexing all the stores.
Right, right. There becomes a whole nother thing of how if they set themselves up across retailers right? Where they're
Mhm.
agnostic to the platform, that becomes a more trusted source. And when you can do things that maybe are, um, it's learning about your biases and what you want in a product, right? That it's not always price, it's quality, or,
Yeah,
those
or
kind of
subject
things.
matter.
Yeah.
We watched the Amazon store change to a per reader experience for your pop list and the books actually recommended to you as being the top in 2018. Because I was teaching authors the Amazon store back then and showing how watch what happens. I get recommended when I log in and I ask for, Werewolf Shift or Romance, and I get these 5 books. Now watch when I go to an incognito window and I sign in, it's a completely different set of books that are
Yeah.
recommended.
Sure. And then, the commercial realities of, Amazon has got a vested interest now in advertising, right? That's where
Mhm.
they're after. AWS is their next big revenue source. So how, you and I have observed just in the last few years how that recommendation engine has become biased to advertising spend, right? So,
Yeah, Amazon ads. I can remember 2 years ago when they were at Novelist Incorporated, and I talked with Amanda there about all the AI stuff. And then this year, I noticed at the conferences, including Author Nation, they're now sharing the AI tools that they have for authors to use in their Amazon ads platform. So, I mean, AI is coming to everything.
oh yeah, and I think that that's something that, I wanted to kind of dig into
Mhm.
is, I know you've kind of become the preeminent voice for how to apply this stuff in your creative process of writing, but there's all this other stuff that frankly authors are, um, one, not very good at, and two, don't want to do, right? That the advent of agents and where things are going to be going with, automating other processes, um, is something that I think is going to be important to all authors, right? Even if you choose to not use, generative AI in your creative process, the fact that you can get it up, it working in your business, and it'll do a better job than you in something you
Mhm.
don't want to do anyhow, is how you get more writing time back, right? Even if you want to write, with a crow quill pen, you
Yeah.
get more writing time back if you do these other business processes through agents. So, what's your thoughts on that?
So one big huge time suck authors always have is how do I market the book after the book is written, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
top authors usually employ virtual assistants or other people or marketing agencies that are making these graphics for them, making these TikTok videos for them, etc. What we're going to be seeing in 2025 is more and more tools on the market that will automatically make that for you with a click of a button, where you just upload your book and it just makes it for you. I just bought Social Bee for the Future Fiction Academy, and they already have an agent. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about an agent. An agent is just it's accessing the LLM models with a couple of extra instructions. It's still ChatGPT or it's still Claude or it's still whatever model that they're using, but an agent is just like a little bit of extra interfacing that they put on top of it that can store some specific information about your business or something like that. I believe Andrew Davies, right? Or Davis,
Andrew
Davies,
Davis, yeah, yeah.
Davis. He showed us an agent he had made that could email for him because it had
Mhm.
all these emails and it understood how to email like him. So that's what these agents are. They're kind of like little applications that you give it some information, but the foundation of its ability is whatever model it's attached to. So
Mhm.
you could have the same agent with different models and get different kinds of responses based on whether you're using Claude or you're using OpenAI or what have you. Um, but anyway, Social Bee, I answered some questions, and Joe, it made me 6 buckets of post categories, put 10 posts in each one. It didn't make the image yet, but it told me what the image should be. Like it gave
Mhm.
me a line of like what the image should be to go with that post. And
Yeah.
these are the early days of this. I think by summer of 2025, there's going to be a lot of very robust tools on the market for authors to make TikToks, to make marketing, to make newsletters, whatever. And I know Shell Honaker's been showing a lot of automations as well, with her automation newsletter,
Mhm.
about how to do these things today. So you don't have to wait for those if you want to start learning how to play with agents and work with them today.
Yeah, we've been using Opus Pro for almost a year now.
Mhm.
And it just keeps getting better and better at its ability to, like, you upload, you just send it the link of the YouTube video and it comes back and says, here's 10 clips,
Mhm.
and it gives you a weighting and why it thinks it's going to do better. And I just saw they released a thing where you can start asking it questions to kind of prompt it to do a more targeted search that isn't just on like the general virality of keywords that are on YouTube per se. But yeah, it's very interesting to see how this stuff goes. And, uh, the reality is that there's, we haven't even touched on some of the most important stuff around things that are important to me, like in business, is like,
Mhm.
most authors don't even take the time to balance their checkbook. Right? Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Um, to start having, you know, agents that are in things like QuickBooks or some of these other business programs that'll help you to start thinking about how to better manage your
Mhm.
cash. Right? This is gonna be very powerful stuff that, no matter what your take is on the creative side, if you're not embracing this stuff, you're limiting your ability for your business to succeed, because other people will adopt this stuff, right? Like, that's the hard part for, I think, some folks that are like, oh, technology scares me. It's like, yeah, but it becomes the table stakes, right?
Right. And if you're a digital entrepreneur, I don't know how you get to say technology scares me, or like I'm just going to not participate in this when it's the biggest change to our ecosystem.
Yeah, you can.
I mean, yeah,
Like, there's
there's no law against it, I
yeah,
suppose, but
yeah, I mean,
the consequences are not going to be kind.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the boats aren't going to circle back to come get you, buddy.
No.
Sorry.
As a matter of fact, that is something we've just started talking about because we're closing our mastermind on December 20th. And we had to explain to people that the gap between authors who are just now learning this stuff and the authors who have been working with us for 18 months, it's too big. And we have a lot of stuff that we have to work on as a group of authors who are on the cutting edge of this stuff. Agents, for example, is a big thing for next quarter, but we're also experimenting with Kindle Trends. I don't know if you're familiar with Kindle Trends or not.
No, tell me about that.
Yeah, so Kindle Trends is run by my friend Nat Connors. Been in the market a long time.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I know he reached out to me. Yeah, I do know. I now I know. Okay, keep going.
yeah. He's based in New Zealand, so he presents over there a lot of times. But what people don't know is he's a PhD in like data analysis. I've known him since 2018, and what he does differently than other tools in the market that like what is it? Dave Chesson's Kindle Rocket and or
Publisher
Publisher
Rocket,
Rocket.
and then you've
Yeah,
got
and even Klytics. What's different
Klytics.
is a lot of those are very like, here's what happened 6 months ago or in the last 6 months. Kindle Trends sends you an email and tells you how the keywords changed in your thing week to week. So
Mm.
it's like stock of these keywords. He has a data feed that we've been experimenting with, and we were playing live on YouTube this weekend, as a matter of fact, twice, putting the feed in and having the AI tell us what books to write that would fit the market for where. And I think that this is a big thing for authors who are like professional or even not, working on their first book. It's like, okay, I want to write sci-fi, but how am I going to niche correctly so that I can find an audience?
Mm.
And it's some really fascinating stuff about what it'll come up with.
Well, what I would say to folks, I think there's certainly people that are going to try and write to market and try and catch trends and do that. And if that's something you're strong at, that's great. The other part of that information being important is, if you are established in a particular genre that you're good in and you like
Yep.
to write in, is understanding its oscillations, right? Is like, it's kind of hot right now, and that's why things are going well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's not so hot right now. I need to understand that, right now is not the thing for my genre. And I think that that's something, again, for authors when they're thinking about their long-term career, is understanding those ups and downs,
Yeah.
and not like being like, well, that's not fair. It's like, okay, when it's make hay when the sun is out, and understand there's going to be downturns. And
Mhm.
if you can predict, like, oh, we're going into a downturn, there's just a general, you know guess what? At some point, romantasy is not going to be as hot.
No, just like Cozy Witch Mysteries is not as hot as it once was 5 years ago.
Right,
And
right. Like, everyone was going to write that, and guess what?
I've been
Everyone
telling
did.
everyone F1 romances are coming. It's going to take over sports romance. And lo and behold, there's already major authors with them on pre order going into the winter. And I'm like, some of us can see the trends because we are like, I'm a customer zero for middle aged women who read certain genres and things like that. Not all authors have those demographics. So they're not going to have the same access points that I do or the same knowledge that I have. Just like
Mm.
your demographic for the demographic you are and the things that are popular with people who are the same customer avatar as you.
Yeah, sure, sure.
So this allows authors, this kinds of technology allows authors to maybe dive deeper into different customer avatars, different markets and things like that, that they wouldn't necessarily already get. And like you say, they're going to be able to look at, well, maybe I can adjust just this way. I only have to do one step away instead of like writing to market necessarily. It's still part of my core brand because my core brand is romance with paranormal elements. But as romantasy is falling and I'm seeing circus, you know, fantasy going up, then I
Mhm.
can I can do some of those books and it's still going to be on brand.
Sure. Well, and to kind of bring this back into the idea of, AI and authors using this stuff, um, it's not just what these agents are going to be able to do. It's you collaborating with
Mm-hmm.
your models and the things that you build to use this data. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. If, you were at Author Nation, you saw my opening presentation, and
Mm-hmm.
that all came out of, we did this pre-show survey of the audience that had ticketed people, and we asked a bunch of questions,
Yep.
and then I threw that spreadsheet into Claude. It was Claude
Mm-hmm.
that put this in, and went through a series of questions, and just using it as kind of a data partner, bouncing things off of it. And it came out, it revealed to me this whole idea of, like, there's we can take identical authors in the sense of how long they've been writing, the genre they write, the number of books they have, and these two people perform differently as far as what they've said their profitability is.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that? It wasn't their advertising, it wasn't the number of books, right? It was that they had a peer network, a mentor, or some type of accountability system. And if
Yeah.
they had all three, they were 4.1 times more profitable. It's like, wow, that's like the essence of what we're trying to do. And to be able to find that data so quickly and be able to dig in and show that to people, I mean, that was a real aha moment for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I've been publishing indie publishing since 2011. So I watched this happen in real time. You didn't have to give me a spreadsheet to tell me like that would have been successful because I've watched big name authors take other authors under their wing and suddenly those authors seem to like leapfrog many
Hmm.
stages of development that those of us starting earlier on had to go through. I had to explain to people in one of my classes that when I started in 2011, there was no guide on how to market an ebook because ebooks were brand new. There
Yeah.
was no, like, a lot of the resources and stuff. I mean, we weren't even allowed to go to conferences as a self-published author in 2011. You were considered unpublished and you were considered an amateur and you wouldn't be able to get into those sessions and things like that for the published authors. So it's come a very long way, and I think now we're kind of overtaking the market. I think we're at an inflection point when you look at some of the sales and stuff like that in some of the biggest markets. And I can say this because I've seen the Kindle trend stuff. For example, of the top 200 books in cozy mystery, 70% of them were self-published.
Yeah. I think we're probably even further than you think in the
Yeah.
sense of where what I'm seeing from the conference side is trad is now, you know, they're being pulled by some of their biggest people to be like, there's this new model. We need to think about what we're doing,
Yep.
right? And I think that what that manifests into isn't important for us to figure out. What's important, at least from my perspective, is to facilitate it, right?
Hmm.
Is to get beyond any type of particular business model, because any business model that you and I are using today, quite frankly, is probably not going to be relevant in 3 years, right?
Yeah.
It's not, right? There's going to be a different way of doing business, right? And we don't know what that is. What we need to be is nimble,
Hmm.
right? And using these tools in the best way possible. And so back to that whole idea of that, having the right people around you that are
Yeah.
thinking the right way and are holding your feet to the fire, um, that is going to never change, right? Because that's going to keep you frosty and on top of things and making sure that you don't get too complacent, right? I had situation where some authors that didn't want to come to the show kind of had this thing of like, well, I'm kind of a big deal now and I don't really need your sessions and you're this and you're that. And it's like, okay. And I get that. I'm not the kind of person that goes to a lot of sessions, but what if you meet the next up and comer and you give him or her some of your time and you help them get that start? So when they become a big deal, they remember you.
Right.
Like, that's what mentorship's really about. It
It
isn't.
ebbs and flows. It really does. I
Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
tell people all the time there is no formula, perfect way to publish that you're going to hit it out of the park every single time. If there was, there wouldn't be any room in the market for us because the big publishing companies would just hit a home run every time they go up to bat. And that's
Yeah.
not the case. You're going to go up to bat, and a good percentage of the time, you're going to strike out, or it's going to be a foul ball down third base. It's
Well,
just
I
the way
mean,
it is.
yeah, I mean, the reality of it is that any of these models and things that we're looking at might speed up your point on the curve,
Mm-hmm.
success curve, but the curve hasn't changed. It's still a power law curve, right? Like,
Yep.
there's still this long, long tail of unprofitable authors. That's not going to change.
No, it's always going to be 80-20. Like
Yeah.
20% of the authors are successful and 80% of them are just like filling in
Yeah.
the back.
Yeah. All right.
Um,
So,
I have a prediction.
yeah, let's hear some predictions and
Yeah.
let's get some of your things that people need to be watching
So
for.
looking at the Nova models, which are the new Amazon models, I noticed in the press release they touted how many languages these models can do. And what that got me thinking about is it took Amazon about 18 months to move on offering AI audio. Like this past year, they started offering AI audio to authors that they're labeling it in the store and everything like that. But there's people who are making money off of that. Translations has blipped their radar as many authors have been using AI to do translations to varying levels of success. Some are making a lot of money with them, some are not. They're having to advertise. It's really funny seeing these conversations because we've been selling in these other countries for years, but only with translations does it look like authors are starting to realize, wait, these markets are very different. You can't have necessarily the same cover or the same
Yeah.
book title. Like, I'm watching the industry grow up a little bit in terms of international business. So
Oh
my
yeah.
prediction in 2025 is that Amazon is going to start offering AI translations internal into KDP. I would expect that's probably going to be there by before next winter or into 2026. But I think that they're going to be seeing these authors making the money with these translations. And it's a no brainer. I mean, it's a no brainer to make more money when you already have an internal model that can do it.
That's interesting. The other thing that you made me think about is, I'm sure you're familiar with the stuff Publish Drive is doing.
Yeah, very much so.
That, with what they're building technology wise, what you just said would be also something that would be really fitting for their model where, I can almost go in and say, here's my book. I'm going into these different markets and it comes up with different covers, different translations, different title adjustments.
Yes. When we talked with them at the Future of Publishing Mastermind in New Orleans last year, I talked with Steve and I was like, we need a tool that the author can put the book in and it can do all the metadata and it can do the cover and it can do these things. And I talked to some other aggregators too. They weren't as interested in that kind of a tooling. And I got to see like the sneak peeks of it when I was in Germany at the Frankfurt Book Fair because I had dinner with them and got to see stuff. So I'm really excited where Publish Drive is going. Publish Drive is authors need to look for partners who are going forward into AI versus partners who are putting their heads in the sand and saying, you know, we have an anti-AI policy and stuff like that. Because I'm sorry to say this, but if you have an anti-AI policy, you're not going to be in business for very long.
Yeah, every business has to make their own choices, right? That's gonna fall at the feet of management.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that there's going to be companies that really lean into this, and they're going to make stuff that is a amazing solution to a problem that doesn't exist, right?
Yep.
That happens a lot. There's going to be people that resolve real issues, and that's going to be what makes their business change. And that, people forget like what the 1.0 version is of a lot of things. Like PayPal originally was a device that connected to your Palm Pilot
Mm-hmm.
to help you do transactions, right? It was actual and like huge flop,
Yeah.
right? I can't remember what Groupon was before they became Groupon, right? There was,
I don't know, but what I like to always talk about when people think that certain companies are too big to fail and they don't need to adjust and they don't need to adapt, I just tell them BlackBerry.
yeah, or Sears. I
Yeah,
think
if you don't like, you can be the absolute biggest. There's no such thing as too big to fail.
yeah, and I
Um,
think that's one of the hardest things I was talking at the show is that everyone just assumes that Amazon is going to continue to have this dominant position and this is going to be the way things are. And it's like, just look at just go study the history of Sears Roebuck and what
yeah,
innovators they were at the time. And there are people now that are of the age, they don't even know what that company was.
yeah, and I think now that I have a company, but things that I've learned is that it's really challenging to stay innovative the whole time or to stay adaptable because at some point you start making some real money and so that it's easier to be innovative and like risk taking when your revenue sheet is very low because you don't have a lot to risk. But as your revenue sheet gets bigger, as your employees numbers gets bigger and everything like that, as a leader, it's very challenging to be like, okay, if I'm going to make this gamble, how many people am I going to affect if I mess this up or it doesn't pay out the way I think it's going to?
Yeah. And, certainly, if you look at private equity and venture, the change from private venture capital to private equity, right? At some point, usually they replace the founder.
Yeah.
Because the business is different. Like they don't need a guy that's a risk taker and is going to do all these innovative things and is thinking about the bleeding edge. You need somebody that's like going to listen to the people in HR and is building out a sales force and is establishing a business that has, systems that are, able to, it's similar to what we're doing with the show is like, there's certain things that should never change now, right? We've got a process.
Couches should never change.
Right? But like that was a big change that we made. What was that about? It was about listening to the customer and hearing, oh, there's a big percentage of us that come to these things and come to a lot of these shows and never sit in a session. We hang out, we do deals, we talk, and to create that space is easy to do.
Yeah, it was so used. I don't think that couch sat empty for more than 5 minutes.
No. But now that becomes part of our brand. That becomes part of what we're about, right?
Yeah. If you take the couches out, people are going to be like, "What is this?"
What other predictions do you have? We can talk about furniture some other time.
Yeah. As far as AI goes, I think that it's even more important for authors to learn the basics of how LLMs work. There's going like we're already seeing a lot of, you mentioned VC and stuff. There's a lot of software coming out on the market. We just saw a big one. I'm not going to say what it is because I'm not giving them airtime. But it's basically vanity publishing with AI on the back end, charging authors thousands of dollars for publishing packages and saying that they've got the secrets. So, like when I just talked about what the experiments we're doing with Kindle Trends, there's a lot of companies that are come out of the woodwork and they're going to say they have all these tooling and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I'm going to really warn people, if there's not a bona fide author that you can kind of connect to or something like that, either through your network that has said that they've used it and they know what the back end is, please be very wary, because with AI, you can do a lot of unscrupulous things. You can do a lot of things to make it look like you're doing XYZ, but really on the back end, it's just a slot machine on the back. There's
Yeah.
not actual real data. Huh?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that some things are never going to change, and uh, folks trying to exploit authors' dreams to becoming best-selling published author.
That's
That
not new.
one is that there's always money there. There's
Yeah.
always new people coming in, and whether it's paying to have your book made into a bestseller, or
Yep.
and
But
who's gonna lose the most money on that is dumb people in venture capital that think that that stuff actually works, right? Because 5 minutes with you or I would be like, show me how it changes the power law curve. Show
yeah,
me how they can take something and put it at number one over
show
and
me the
over again.
person who's with the company that has any publishing experience. That's the thing that I hit the most in the AI space. I meet a lot of people who think that they're going to revolutionize book publishing and stuff, or book writing with their AI, but they don't know the first thing about book writing. They don't know the first thing about book publishing. And we'll have a conversation, and it's like, okay, what are the keywords you use for fiction? And I'm like, keywords? Yeah, how do you rank number one on keywords for your fiction books? And I'm like, that's not a thing. That's I mean, I get that that's like what you hear in nonfiction world if you're talking about advice from 5 years ago, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
just not
old.
how publishing works anymore. So,
Well, and you know, a lot of this stuff is kind of is just regurgitated scam
mhm.
we've seen over
Yeah.
and over again. But
As far as more innovation goes, I there's going to be a lot more books, and there are going to be a lot more good books on the market. So it's not a tsunami of crap that authors are going to have to deal with. It's a tsunami of good and great, because I'm watching authors in aggregate who were either hampered by their personal lives in terms of the amount of time that they had, or they were maybe hampered by they didn't have maybe as robust of an education in, say, literature or anything like that, but they love to read or listen to audiobooks and they're a good storyteller. All of these people who have maybe not been able to compete with indie authors are now coming into the market with really good books and voices and ideas that are outside of the box than what
mm,
even we have started to be thinking about. So it is not a risk of, oh, everyone's going to put a bunch of crap AI books into my top 100. It's a bunch of people are going to put some really good books in their top 100 that are AI assisted.
yeah, again, I've been saying this since day one. It's a tool, and in the hands of a bad writer, you'll get bad output. In
Yeah.
the hands of a good writer, you're going to get great output, and that doesn't change, and the market will sort it out. Like if you don't
Yes.
think, like the market sorts out every day, three to
Mm-hmm.
5,000 books that new books coming in, and it's been doing it. I mean, when I first came around, which was after you, it was just about 4 million titles. We're now,
I
I heard,
remember when we hit 1 million titles in the Amazon store.
yeah, like I
It was
heard
like a big
40
deal.
the other day. I heard 40 million the other day.
And something that's really interesting too, I wanted to bring up. This came up in conversation. Somebody erroneously in a group discussion I was having, and it's not. It's just the way. It's so funny the way that we've been talking about Sears and things like that. The way that the historical narrative gets shared was the idea that Amazon invented ebooks. That wasn't the case at all.
Hmm.
No, Sony had an ebook reader and had ebooks. Barnes and Noble had digital editions because I was reading on my browser in like before my daughter was born in 09. What Amazon did is that they came into the market a little bit after the earliest adopters and things like that. And then what they did is they built off of what they already learned and just like perfected it. Like they optimized it. And I think that this is another prediction I have, is that if you are just coming into this AI stuff, it's easier than ever to learn how to use it. It's easier than ever to use it. And you could be like Amazon right now. If you're coming in, it's not too late. You can be like Amazon came into the ebook thing, because you're coming in right as AI is starting to hit its stride.
Oh, I think that if there's a major theme that I keep hitting on, is that as somebody that uh maybe it was a little too early for
Yeah.
me, in the sense of what happened with the internet and the .com boom,
Mm-hmm.
seeing what happened, and to now be older, mature, have experience, and to get it, like, this is like, oh my God, I get into playing the World Series. Like, yes, there's going to be mistakes that I'll make. There will be things that I will spend money on and do that won't work out.
Mm-hmm.
But being part of this actively will give me so much first mover advantage. Like, I think this is something I kind of see in the industry, the publishing industry. There's this, I'm going to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm
Fine,
gonna wait and see.
fine. What happens is you get washed out in the wake, and then you're always imitating, and you're always a step behind.
Yep.
That's the problem. That it's not about there's going to be a bunch more books dumped in the market. There's going to be people that adopt some of these things are going to get so much more first mover advantage and
Yes.
have this technical aptitude that you won't, that you're never going to be able to catch up. You're always going to be behind the trend. And that's fine. Some people can live in that space really well, but that those aren't going to be the ones that are going to be the front of that power law curve.
No, just in the last 6 months, the writing quality of AI has just leaps and bounds in terms of the strategies we now have for prompting. When I taught at AuthorNation, the advanced class, I know you weren't able to be there, but the room was packed. It was so hot. And I wrote live, and I kid you not, Joe, we're like reading it live. And I'm like, anyone still reading? They're like, yes. And when we got to the end of the presentation, the whole room applauded the AI writing. I've never in my life thought that I would have that moment. Get to that moment. It's been a hard 3 years.
Yeah.
Get to that moment that a room of my peers cheered for the writing that the AI wrote, and that they could understand that there's now software and things out there that bring them into the process, and the AI sits inert unless they're prompting it and they're validating it and they're controlling it. But the output that they can get, I mean, I had to hear Doug Pratt, love him. His wife got a hold of Raptorite after Ning, and she's never written a book before, Joe, and she's written 10. So this is what I mean by new people are coming into the market who have strong voices, good ideas for books and things like that. And I couldn't be happier, because for a long time they've always wanted to write a book and they couldn't.
Well, I think that, let's end on this. We'll make an F1 analogy, right? Like, there's you put Fernando Alonso in that car and it
Yeah.
does magical things. You put you or me in that car, it would be pretty surprising if we got it out of first gear and
Or
maybe
Lance Stroll.
hey now.
I mean,
But the idea being is like, it's a highly engineered machine. It does amazing
yeah.
stuff. There's who uses it
Mm-hmm.
makes the difference, right? And the cool thing is that in this analogy, you and I with training
Yeah.
could drive, probably not as good as Fernando Alonso or Max Verstappen, but maybe Lance Stroll.
I know I can drive as well as Logan Sargent.
Yeah.
But another
You and I
F1
can crash a car
analogy,
with the best of them.
another F1 analogy is that they've really made efforts about, changing how they do the education and the training and stuff for F1. And now there's new drivers coming into the pipeline that were never in the pipeline before. And I think that that's what we're going to see with AI. We're going to get authors who are experienced authors, you're now going to be able to write in genres that you've always wanted to write in, but you couldn't put the time into. We've talked about that for the last year.
Yeah.
But this new trend that I'm seeing is people who have never entered the author market before are coming in with good product. They're coming in with good stories and great reads. And I think that that's an important thing, because we have a whole new group, a whole new cohort of indie authors to welcome coming into 2025.
Awesome. Well, let's leave it there. We'll catch up in another couple of weeks, and there'll be a whole new slew of stuff. Thanks again for being on the podcast.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Talk to you later.
Mm-hmm.